Tonight, the final countdown, Kamala Harris hosts a star-studded rally while Donald Trump storms through the swing states. Good evening, I'm Kyle Dowling. This is ABC News, Northern Territory. Also tonight, funding for underground power cut off as the NT government tightens its belt. Losing interest, the RBA keeps rates on hold once again, with no cut expected until next year. And while all eyes were on Melbourne, a tiny territory town was running a race of its own. They've crisscrossed the country dozens of times, but for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the closing hours of the campaign played out in very different ways. Trump continued his blitz through the swing states, raising concerns about the legitimacy of the election, while thousands of Kamala supporters gathered in Philadelphia for a star-laden rally as the Democrat candidate placed her final focus on an optimistic message. Our reporters have been following every step of the final days of the race. We begin tonight's coverage with North America correspondent Barbara Miller in the must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Close to midnight on the eve of America's election, one final pitch to voters.
Just one more day in the most consequential election of our lifetime, and the momentum is on our side.
Addressing supporters from the place made famous by the 1970s movie Rocky.
Here at these famous steps, a tribute to those who start as the underdog and climb to victory.
In a sign of just how important Pennsylvania is, Harris spent the whole day in the state.
Let's get this done.
Jetting to Philadelphia for her grand finale. With some A-list backers.
I cast my vote for someone who will be a president for all.
Every single vote, every one is going to matter. That's why I've come to Philadelphia tonight.
Puerto Rican star Ricky Martin also taking the stage. He endorsed Harris after a comedian at a Trump rally joked his homeland was garbage. The Democratic candidate noticeably didn't name her opponent, but she certainly referenced him.
Turn the page on a decade of politics that has been driven by fear and division.
Do you think she's going to win?
I don't want to say that because I don't want people to think we have it in the bag and not come out and vote. But yes.
I think she's going to win by a landslide.
Really? Philadelphia has seen this kind of rally before. Exactly 8 years ago, it was the setting for another Election Eve campaign event by another Democrat, hoping to become America's first female president.
Pennsylvania, it all happens tomorrow.
Kamala Harris and her supporters hoping this time history will be made. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Philadelphia.
The former president was making his last-ditch attempts to woo undecided voters with a starkly different vision for the country. Donald Trump mostly steered away from prepared remarks as he lobbed insults in a furious tirade against his Democrat opponents.
Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out. Get the hell out of here.
Donald Trump is on the warpath.
If we get everybody out and vote, there's not a thing they can do.
The former president was also in the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania, making his last-ditch pitch to be the leader of the free world for the second time. In his final rally before the nation decides who will be president, Donald Trump came out swinging.
And I will stop the invasion of criminals coming across our border. I will strengthen our military. I will restore peace in the world. And I will rescue the American dream. But Kamala is, this is known, she's a very low IQ person. And we don't need a low IQ individual. We've had that for 4 years.
Across the United States, the mood for Republicans is confident and combative.
I think Donald Trump's going to have a red wave is what I think.
I watched the hearings from the last 2020 election, and it was blatant fraud. Nothing came of it. But I think we're ahead of the game this time.
Trump voters out in strength for a final push before voting day. Donald Trump's third presidential campaign ended here in Michigan much like it began. Promises to end wars, improve the cost of living and cast a long shadow of doubt over the legitimacy of one of the world's oldest democracies. Elias Kluwer, ABC News, Grand Rapids.
With the campaigning complete and Election Day soon dawning, America's future is now in the hands of the voting public. North America correspondent Jade McMillan is in Florida.
The opening of polls across the country brings an extraordinary campaign to a close. Both candidates are retreating to familiar territory for Election Day. The Vice President will return to her old university in Washington, D.C., while the former president will be here at his home in Florida's West Palm Beach. Regardless of the outcome, it will be historic. Kamala Harris would become America's first ever female president. Donald Trump only its second to make a comeback after being voted out of the White House. But for many Americans, this is a nerve-wracking moment. 4 years on from the violent aftermath of the last election, security is being stepped up at polling places and counting centres. Authorities preparing for the possibility that the end of a tumultuous campaign could signal the beginning of another divisive period.
And some of the first votes have now been tallied and reported as part of a midnight tradition in a small township in the northeast of the country. Here's US election analyst Casey Briggs.
Tomorrow, it's decision day. American voters will pick their next president. But one town has had a head start. We have the first figures in the state of New Hampshire, specifically from this bit of New Hampshire, a little town called Dixville Notch. And at midnight local time, as it does every 4 years, it was the first place in America to report votes. The result? Kamala Harris 3 votes, Donald Trump 3. A tie. An omen of things to come? Look, obviously we're not going to read too much into that, but we are now off the blocks in the race for the White House. And tomorrow, here in the ABC Election Centre, those 6 votes will become tens of millions. And we'll be here to count them all, along with Jeremy Fernandez.
Casey, our coverage kicks off before sunrise and continues right through the day, culminating in a special edition of ABC News at this time tomorrow night. I'll be co-hosting during the day with Bridget Brennan, plus a panel of experts exploring the key issues, not just for the United States, but also what's at stake for us here in Australia. Every count, every result beamed straight to us in the election centre and straight up onto the big board. Casey, these are the 538 electoral college votes, state by state, in a country that's split right down the middle.
Right down the middle indeed. On the left, all of the electoral college votes that were won by Joe Biden 4 years ago. On the right, those that were won by Donald Trump. And as the votes roll in tomorrow, and as those states start to get called one by one, these bricks in our big board will colour in, and we'll start to get a firmer idea of who'll be the 47th President of the United States.
Coming up on 7:30, Sarah Ferguson hosts the show from Washington, D.C. and speaks to political analyst Chris Shywalt.
What crap?
The problem for Trump this time, these Democrats are just mad as hell. They are just mad as hell at Donald Trump, and they are angry about abortion, and they are angry about the situation, and they would eat a glass Coke bottle to go vote.
To other news, and the country Liberal Party government claims it's found almost $200 million in savings in the Northern Territory's budget. The Treasurer announcing he's pulled funding for 3 projects promised by Labor, including underground power in Darwin's northern suburbs.
Darwin's most destructive cyclone since Tracy. Marcus, a Category 2 system, leaving a trail of destruction in 2018. Almost 30,000 homes were left without power, including John Graham's in Jingley. He suffered through 6 humid nights with no air conditioning or fans.
A fan is a real lifesaver, but when you've got no power, then the air's just not moving and you're just lying there and you're just sweating.
5 minutes down the road, Coconut Grove residents were stuck in the same nightmare.
You could say, yeah, it was fun by candlelight for a couple of nights, but, you know, after 6, 7 nights, 8 nights, it starts to really wear thin.
But not everyone was living in a sauna. People in Nightcliff, Rapid Creek and Milner, thankful for having had power lines transferred underground in the 2000s, a program scrapped by the Country Liberal Party in 2012. Fast forward 12 years, Labor's plans to resume the rollout binned once again by the CLP.
We've put on hold the $60 million to underground some of the HV power in the northern suburbs.
Funding for the Darwin Convention Centre, the Darwin Salties, and what the government is calling unfunded obligations, also on the chopping block.
We've identified nearly $200 million in savings.
The CLP came to power saying it would end the era of pet projects in the Territory. And while the government has found savings in Darwin, $27 million announced for infrastructure in Alice Springs on Monday suggests the term pet project is subjective. Jack Hislop, ABC News.
The Northern Territory Legal Aid Commission has flagged its intention to lodge an appeal against the conviction of Declan Laverty's killer Keith Kiranua. Kiranua is serving life behind bars for the stabbing death of bottle shop worker Declan Laverty in March last year. The 20-year-old was found guilty of murder following a 2-week jury trial in the Supreme Court of the Northern Territory earlier this year. In a letter to the Director of Public Prosecutions obtained by the ABC, Legal Aid say they intend to apply for leave to appeal the decision, despite the 28-day appeal period already having lapsed. It will be up to the court to decide whether an appeal is allowed. The Reserve Bank has kept interest rates on hold once again. The RBA governor says while core inflation is moving towards its target, the central bank still needs more convincing that it's going to stay down.
For these punters at the Melbourne Cup, a lot was riding on the Reserve Bank's interest rate decision.
We've probably had like a 45% increase on our weekly mortgage repayments.
It's a lot harder these days now, with everything else going up, you know, food and fuel and all the bills and everything.
Clearing the inflation barrier is no easy feat.
I don't even know who won.
The RBA governor is more focused on tackling underlying inflation and still can't rule out a rate rise.
We do think that there are still some risks on the upside. That's why I say we can't rule anything in or out.
As expected, the Reserve Bank kept the cash rate on hold at 4.35%.
What this means is that rates haven't gone up since last Melbourne Cup day.
We are absolutely at the back of the pack in seeing reduction in interest rates. We've seen them in the US, in the UK, in Canada, New Zealand, Europe, elsewhere, but not in Australia.
While we may be a laggard when it comes to interest rate cuts, rates here are still low compared to other nations like the US and New Zealand. And given the nation's leading economists are not expecting a rate cut by Christmas, borrowers will have to wait until next year for any mortgage relief.
I still think first half of next year it's likely, but we shouldn't be holding our breath for a lot of interest rate cuts in Australia.
I really don't think we can expect any rate relief from the RBA until about May of next year.
The governor wouldn't be drawn into forward guidance for next year.
We will try to make sure that we're tuned in enough that if things start to turn down more than expected, that we're ready to act, but we don't know.
With rates staying higher for longer, Australians with home loans are being advised to seek out a better deal.
There are 34 different lenders offering at least one variable rate under that 6% mark, so it is well worth looking at the refinancing numbers.
So it pays to switch lenders to minimise the mortgage pain. David Chow, ABC News.
Irish jockey Robbie Dowling came to Australia to follow a singing dream, but today he etched his name into racing history, winning the Melbourne Cup on board Knight's Choice. In front of a crowd of 91,000, the 28-year-old beat off the highly fancied international contingent to deliver trainer Sheila Laxon her second Cup victory.
A Melbourne Cup winning jockey, it's a moment this Irishman won't forget anytime soon.
Knight's Choice Warp Speed, they hit the line. It's a photo finish. Knight's Choice, I reckon's won from Warp Speed and a photo.
An emphatic win for the Irish singer who might have produced his best hit yet.
Pinch me, I think I'm dreaming. It's incredible. I can't believe it. I don't even know what to say.
Knight's Choice edging out Warp Speed in second and Akita Sushi in third. Most interest was on the international raiders, but with 200 metres to go, Dowling found a gap and Knight's Choice did the rest. Dowling came to Australia from Ireland 8 years ago to chase a music dream as a contestant on The Voice.
So come on, let it go. Just let it be. Why don't you be you and I?
Taking centre stage with his dad, wife and daughter in the crowd, co-trainers John Simons and Sheila Laxon riding every bit of the emotion. Laxon winning her first cup 23 years ago when she became the first female to win the Caulfield Melbourne Cup double with Ethereal.
Well done. I'm not just a good singer.
Once upon a time, the Flemington feature really was a wild dream. Today, Dowling shared it with 91,000 people, the highest crowd since 2016, who this morning were off and racing. The 164th edition of the Cup, no better excuse to frock up in your Tuesday best.
Racing and fashion are synonymous with each other.
Something different, first time to the Melbourne Cup.
And it wouldn't be the Melbourne Cup without celebrity guests. Four-time Olympic champion Ariane Titmus enjoyed being mostly out of the spotlight.
This is honestly my favourite thing to do when I'm on a break from swimming, and this year I don't actually have to train tomorrow, so I can really enjoy the day.
The day drawing punters from far and wide.
We come from Mount Isa. Just come down to check out the Melbourne Cup.
With Ladies' Day coming earlier than usual, the race featuring a record number of female jockeys and trainers.
To now be able to relax and just watch on and enjoy all the girls that are riding in the Cup today and just all the great racing, it doesn't get much better than this.
The day of success for those who took a chance on the outsider. For the Dowling camp, leaving with extra luggage on a day they'll never forget. Alexia Pesce, ABC News, Melbourne.
Now to the Territory's answer to the Melbourne Cup, but instead of a race course and a fancy grandstand, punters gather at a rural pub for a race slightly more unique. The Darwin Croc races have become known as the race that stops the Territory, and this year didn't disappoint.
Out of the gates and ready to run. There may not be a thoroughbred in sight, but these young salties have been preparing for their big moment on the Territory's own track.
We get usually the Graham's niece or nephews to tie a couple bit of chicken around their legs and then send them running, and that warms the crocodiles up for a bit of practice. And then they come here, get a rub down, a full masseuse, and then they get ready for race.
But not all races are made equal. While some were looking for a day off in the Darwin heat, others were in fine form.
A really long tail gives them that extra bit of motivation, bit of flick. Those strong, and as long as they look nice, fit and healthy.
The event draws punters from near and far in the hopes of picking a winner in Australia's most unique race.
Never seen a crocodile race, so it'd be quite interesting, better than horses.
Well, seeing the crocodile races, because we haven't been here before, we just arrived in Darwin yesterday, so from New South Wales.
Australia is huge. Everything has to be a big deal, and I love it. I simply love it, this place. And I love crocodiles.
The Territory tradition has been going for 9 years strong and is now a special part of the top-end calendar.
We got married here.
Yeah, so this is our local now.
Local now, so yeah.
We met here, and yeah, it's been great. Had our wedding here last year, and so enjoying our celebration now for our anniversary today.
This year, the croc races are stepping things up a notch with a new addition, camels. These camels aren't taking part in the races, if all goes to plan, but they are rounding out what's been a fantastic day here in Darwin.
They do race. I've never raced a camel, but yes, these ones are not made for racing, or they're not trained for racing, I should say. They're just nice, gentle creatures that just do nice, slow-paced walks.
So I'm wearing jeans so I don't get any chafing on the camel. I was wearing a dress until Liz said there's camels today.
A day where everyone's a winner. Isabella Tolhurst, ABC News, Darwin.
The ABC has apologised for multiple errors in a 7:30 investigation aired 2 years ago about allegations of war crimes involving Australian commandos in Afghanistan. The errors include adding the sound of extra gunshots to footage and taking a comment out of context. National Affairs Editor Melissa Clark reports.
It's this footage that has been under close scrutiny, used in television and online stories about the conduct of the 2nd Commando Regiment in Helmand Province in 2012. 2 months ago, the 7 Network's Spotlight program raised complaints about the sound of extra gunshots being added in. Today, the national broadcaster offered this apology.
Obviously, this shouldn't have occurred, and we're taking it and have taken it very seriously, and that's why we sincerely regret and apologise those editing errors in the video clips.
The ABC had commissioned its former head of editorial policy to conduct a review. It handed an interim report to a Senate estimates hearing today. On the extra gunshots, it found they were inadvertent rather than deliberate, with no evidence suggesting it was done at the direction of journalists involved. The report dismissed concerns about how the footage had been slowed down and zoomed in, but it upheld a complaint by a former US Drug Enforcement Agency team leader who was interviewed, who felt his general remarks about the need to investigate war crimes allegations were used to refer to the Australian regiment. The report found the comment was taken out of context and used in a way which was potentially misleading.
Was anyone's employment terminated as a result of this?
Senator, I can confirm no one's employment has been terminated.
As Director of News, those publications were referred up to me, and I take full responsibility for signing off on those publications.
Whilst not found to be deliberate, altering audio and out-of-context quotes are nonetheless serious editorial failings. It harms the ABC's reputation at a time of growing mistrust in the media. Melissa Clark, ABC News, Canberra.
The Chief of Navy has launched a strident defence of Australia's ageing Collins-class submarines and the future AUKUS nuclear-powered fleet, hitting back at what he's called a pattern of criticism and doubt. Last week, the ABC revealed just one of the Navy's 6 submarines is currently fully operational, with the remaining 5 undergoing urgent repairs or scheduled maintenance. Australia is spending billions of dollars to keep the Collins fleet in service until the 2040s to support the transition to nuclear-powered boats.
Each time we have been challenged, and each time Australian ingenuity and partnership has prevailed. What's not to have confidence in? We've done difficult things before.
The most inspiring and talented Territorians have been recognised at the Anti-Australian of the Year Awards. From a musician and cultural leader to advocates for mental health, multiculturalism and wildlife, the winners come from a range of backgrounds, each connected through their passion for helping others.
Grant Numia Nyuhiribala is a well-known music figure across the NT. Now he's added another accolade to his name, the 2025 Northern Territory Australian of the Year.
When they called my name, I was really shocking inside and can't hardly say so much, you know.
The songwriter from Annamland hopes the award will highlight Indigenous talent from remote communities like his.
It's make me really proud for Numbawa community.
Also recognized international student Nellish Delusion, named NT Young Australian of the Year for his work helping those in need. He wants to inspire multicultural young people to strive for positive change in their community.
Our work in the community is all about breaking those stereotypes, the mind barriers, creating new pathways to volunteer, to integrate into the community, and also to change the narratives. Michael
Foley, OAM, was honoured for his work advocating for senior citizens and their mental health, while Minyo McHenry received the Local Hero Award for 30 years of service, caring and advocating for wildlife. She wants more young people to fall in love with nature.
It'd be great to have young people helping out. It's really rewarding. You have the animal come into your care, you have them for a short amount of time, and then you release them back, and watching them go is just so fantastic.
All 4 winners will travel to Canberra for the national awards on Australia Day next year. Anzaya Karim, ABC News, Darwin.
To finance now, and the Aussie dollar didn't move today when the Reserve Bank announced its decision to leave rates on hold, while the local share market followed Wall Street lower. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, an outsider might have won the Melbourne Cup, but the favourite won the rate cut stakes half an hour earlier. As usual, there were 3 horses in that race: Cut, Hike and Hold. Cut and Hike threw off their riders at the start and then ran the other way, but it didn't matter because no one had any money on them. All the money was on hold. So the Aussie dollar is steady tonight at 66 US cents. Here's 30 years of the RBA cash rate, and while it's up a long way from 0.1% in 2.5 years, it's only just above average. But of course, the household debt upon which interest is paid is anything but average. In those 40 years, it's gone from 70% of income to 190% of income. The RBA also released its quarterly statement on monetary policy today with its annual confession of forecasting hits and misses. The big miss has been productivity since COVID. The RBA thought it would increase, but it collapsed instead. Big mistake, because as Paul Krugman said, productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it's almost everything. I would add that that especially applies to its effect on interest rates. On the share market, Domino's Pizza got burnt after announcing that Chief Executive Don Meij will be retiring. Now, he's 55 and he's been working for Domino's for 37 years, so he started at 18 and he became CEO at 33. He listed Domino's in 2005 with a value of $135 million and it's now worth $3 billion, selling pizzas around the globe. The market finished 0.4% lower. Shares fell in New York last night but rose strongly in Japan and China today, and on commodity markets, iron ore, copper and oil all went up between 1% and 2%, while gold eased. And that's finance.
The captain's knock from Pat Cummins has helped Australia defeat Pakistan by 2 wickets in the one-day international at the MCG. Chasing 204 for victory, the home team was in control as Josh Inglis and Steve Smith combined for an 85-run partnership. Pakistan took 3 quick wickets and threatened to record a rare win in Australia. Cummins steadied the innings with an unbeaten 32 and guided his team to a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series.
Yeah, I think for 3 quarters of it, really good. Yeah, just trying to tighten up that, particularly, try and find some partnerships. Where we try and play aggressive, sometimes it's not going to pay off, but I think, there's still room just to try and find a couple of partnerships.
Looking at the weather now, and tonight's weather pick of clouds over the Gap in Alice Springs has been sent in by Ken Hanlon. Some isolated thunderstorms over the coast in the Go Peninsula, some thunderstorms about the Tiwi Islands and West Coast as well. It was 35 in Darwin today, 37 in Wurrumayunga. Zooming out, 39 for Katherine, 40 in Jabiru, Nhulunbuy 33. A top of 41 in Alice Springs and Yalara, and Tennant Creek 40. On the satellite, a cloud band with thunderstorms stretches from the north of WA through central and southern Australia. A large area of low pressure stretches across most of the country, and a new ridge of high pressure is developing in the southwest. Interstate tomorrow, Hobart 28 with a shower or two in Melbourne, Canberra mostly sunny, Sydney 27 and partly cloudy, sunny in Brisbane, partly cloudy in Adelaide and cloudy in Perth tomorrow, a top of 21. Around the Territory tomorrow, Alice Springs 39 with a possible shower or storm, 39 in Tennant Creek, partly cloudy, and Elliot 41 and mostly sunny. Looking north, Katherine, a top of 41 and sunny, sunny and 39 in Borroloola, mostly sunny and 33 in Gallawinku. Out of the west, mostly sunny and 37 in Bachelor, and Darwin is expected to reach 35, it will be mostly sunny tomorrow. There's a morning high tide at 7:45 tomorrow and a low tide at 2:37 in the afternoon. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:11 and set at 6:49. Hot conditions continuing in Darwin, the chance of showers becoming more likely near the end of the week. And cooling down in coming days in Alice Springs, a possible shower or storm for the next couple of days. Stay with us now. Sarah Ferguson is up next with 7:30. Good night.